All right, next player I want to talk about, DeMarvin Leal, Pittsburgh Steelers defensive tackle. Kind of, I want to say, took a step backwards last season. Now you don't really know what the role is for this guy, if he's going to be somebody that they try to escalate again, if at this point Dean Lowry's their replacement and you're just looking at it and saying DeMarvin Leal doesn't fit in this defense. Where does he go from here? Where do the Steelers go from here? Brian Backo of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette said, quote, occasionally players who can have some value to other teams in trade talks are ones that have decent draft pedigree and physical attributes, measurables, and just haven't panned out in the NFL. I look at the Steelers D-line, kind of go down the list. DeMarvin Leal, third rounder a couple of years ago, just has not panned out here the last two seasons. A little bit injury induced, but I think more so just hasn't developed the way that they want. He goes on to talk about how he believes he could be a trade target and how teams could view this as, hey, look at, he doesn't fit in Pittsburgh's defense. Maybe he'll fit in ours. Third-year guy, has the ability to play inside and outside. I think that he fits better in a 4-3 defense than he does a 3-4 defense, which has been his issue with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Played 25% of the snaps last year, was benched a couple of times, made a healthy inactive because he just didn't fit the scheme of what the Steelers were looking for. I don't know. You think this is the next trade piece for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Omar Khan's dicing and sending guys left and right. So at this point, I think anything's on the table.
Yeah, I do think anything's on the table. I mean, I wonder with the current state of the defensive line, like I still don't think it's terribly deep, and I don't think trading away another defensive lineman obviously makes you that deep. But then again, like what was DeMarvin Leal doing for you?
Yep.
Like not a whole lot. Like you said, only playing 25% of the snaps, and I think that was largely out of necessity given some of the injuries that they had. Um, I I don't know. At first, my first instinct was to say, no, I don't think it's worth it to trade him. Like, I don't think you can really get enough to make it worth it. But I don't know. He's not doing anything for you right now. And it might just be better for everyone to move on, for him to get a fresh start, to find somewhere where he might actually fit better. You can open up a roster spot to, give a rookie a shot if you want to draft someone. The more I think about it, the more I think a trade could be possible. I would still be kind of surprised, but because I just don't, I have no idea what you're getting for DeMarvin Leal. I can't imagine it's that high a value. I mean, I don't know what you think, but like the idea that they would get, I mean, and maybe like a sixth round pick is worth it, like to move on from a guy who's really just hasn't been able to work out in your system. But man, I don't think you're getting much for DeMarvin Leal. You're not getting much more than that, if anything, in my
So
opinion.
I think that you could get higher. I think you get a fourth. I think potentially a fourth and something for DeMarvin Leal. I think that he's got the potential and he's young enough that people are going to look at it and say, like, another team's going to be like, look, we need a depth piece. This is a good depth piece. I think that he's got, like, he coming into the league, like, people were kind of shocked that he was a third round pick. Like, they looked at him and just said, this guy, he threw a draft party for himself on night one of the draft because there was consideration that he was going to be a first round draft pick. Like, it was kind of, he slid to the Steelers in a good situation. And I think teams are going to look at that and say he's young enough where maybe we could develop him into something. You still got 2 years of a really cheap contract. If the Steelers draft a defensive lineman, I think it's very, like, I think that it's almost guaranteed that DeMarvin Leal is on his way out in some way or another. Just because Isaiah Loudermilk, whether you keep him after this season or not, is still cheap. Dean Lowry is going to be like your primary backup. You re-sign Montravius Adams, so you don't have to worry about a nose tackle. You have Nick Herbig. I mean, you're probably going to add another outside linebacker at some point, but Nick Herbig's your number 3, and I think the Steelers feel very comfortable with their 1-2-3. DeMarvin Leal just doesn't fit anywhere. Like, he doesn't have a spot in this defense, and I think the Steelers wanted him to have a spot, but I don't think that his body type works for what the Steelers are looking to do. Like, he's more of a Chase Young, Myles Garrett. He's not on that level, but he plays that position more than he plays a Larry Ogunjobi or TJ Watt. It just doesn't work. He's too slow to play on the outside. He's too small to play on the inside. I think that another team in the right situation with the right scheme, I think that they could view him and say, oh, like, this dude could come off the bench and probably contribute to us. And they're not going to see, DeMarvin Leal showed up a little bit out of shape last year, and there were all those reports about how like the Steelers were a little bit upset because he just wasn't putting in the effort that they wanted him to see. Other teams aren't going to know that. They're not going to have, they're going to have some intel, but they're not going to know how much of that is true and how much of that is not true. I think the Steelers could get maybe a fourth rounder for him in the right situation. I think Omar Khan could wheel and deal him somewhere. I don't like if you're getting a sixth rounder for DeMarvin Leal, I don't think it's worth it because I think his potential's there. I think if you could get a fourth rounder, I'm at least considering that move because I don't think he's a long-term option here in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree. Like he just you worried about depth, but like what position does he fill depth for? Like you
Yeah.
don't know. Like I don't think he really knows either. I don't think the Steelers really know either as well. So I get that. I would be really stunned if if I'm an NFL GM, I'm not sure I'm trading a fourth round pick for DeMarvin Leal. Like where's the I don't know, where's the line for you? Like would a fifth be worth it, or is it anything less than a fourth and you're not interested?
I think a fifth and some, maybe I'm considering that as an option. I think depending on, I think the NFL draft will decide that for, what side of the fence I'm on there. Just because if you add somebody in the draft that you feel is immediately ready to be a depth piece, why you don't need DeMarvin Leal? Who cares about DeMarvin Leal? If you don't and you need somebody this year, I think it makes sense to maybe hold off a year and then try to trade him next year. I don't know. I think the draft will decide what side of the fence I'm on there. Right now, if it happened today, I'm going fourth or lower. I'm not going to fifth. I'm not feeling good enough about where the rest of the line is to go with the fifth.
And you would definitely the trade would come after draft day, or do you think it's possible at all that it comes before?
I think it's possible it comes before, but if I had to guess, I'd say that it's like a Kevin Dotson, Kendrick Green situation where they bring him into training camp, they try to figure something out. It doesn't work out. Teams are starting to realize they need depth pieces because there will be teams out there, like it was the Kendrick Green, it was the like teams are going to start to see like, oh man, dude, we really need a defensive end. Like we do not have defensive ends. We need a defensive end. That's when his trade value, I think, will be the most. I think before the draft, his trade value is low, like real low, like sixth round low, because the draft is somewhat deep at defensive line, and they're not like starter. This is a superstar deep, but it's like quality depth deep. I think teams are going to view that as a better option because you get somebody who's cheap for 4 years instead of 2, and you don't have to give anything up. Whereas after the draft, once these guys don't work out and you're starting to see like, oh man, the 6th round pick that we were really hoping was that guy isn't that guy yet, or this person got hurt or that person got hurt. I think that's when his draft stock will increase. And it'll also give the Steelers his trade stock will increase. And it'll also give the Steelers time to evaluate him and say, hey, look, this guy did take a step forward. Awesome. Or this guy did not take a step forward and it's ready. Like we're ready to move on. It gives everybody some tape. I would say training camp, and I would say deep into training camp, like August, right before the preseason.
When did that Dotson trade happen? And the Kendrick Green one was early, right? But the Dotson one was kind of late, like because the Rams had already got some guys banged up. That's why they needed Dotson.
Yeah, they both happened right after each other, but I think I don't think they played a preseason game yet. Maybe they did play a preseason game. But it was definitely more towards the preseason than it was the beginning of training camp because they already went through the whole Kendrick Green fullback phase and all this nonsense.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep. Yeah. So they already went through all that. So I would imagine it's kind of the same spot. Like they're going to give DeMarvin some time and they're going to work him on the 90-man roster, and then right before the preseason or after the preseason first game, boom, he's out the door. He's on his way somewhere else. And I think Omar Khan could wheel him and deal him for something. But I would imagine, like, if I had to put a percentage on it right now, I'd say there's probably an 80% chance the Steelers deal DeMarvin Leal before the beginning of the season. That would be my guess.